All right, buckle up, because today we're diving into some seriously mind-bending territory.
Oh yeah, we're going deep.
DMT,
That's right.
the molecule found in our brains and nature that some say unlocks alternate realities. We're going to see if there's any truth to that.
We've got wild personal accounts, scientific studies, even gonna peek into ancient cave art.
The whole 9 yards.
What blows my mind is how fast it hits you. Like other psychedelics, they're a slow burn, right? But with DMT, people report feeling it within seconds. Like bam, catapulted into a whole other dimension.
It's like something out of science fiction. Vivid visions, encountering beings, emotions so intense people can't even process them afterwards. It's wild.
Yeah, and that's the big question, isn't it? Are these DMT trips just crazy hallucinations, or are we getting a glimpse behind the curtain?
Exactly.
Well, let's start with the science. DMT is like serotonin's chemical cousin.
Serotonin, that brain chemical that impacts our mood, how we perceive things, sleep, all that good stuff.
Right, super fundamental. And because DMT is so similar to serotonin, it can basically hijack those brain pathways, like instantly.
Like a rocket taking off.
Makes sense why those effects hit so hard so fast. Oh, and there's another molecule, 5-MeO-DMT, often found alongside DMT in nature, has its own distinct effects. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Some scientists think the pineal gland might be involved in producing and releasing DMT.
Hold up. The pineal gland, the third eye. You're telling me that might be pumping out DMT?
That's the theory. It's light sensitive, it produces melatonin for our sleep cycles, but some researchers think, hey, maybe it's making DMT too. Makes you think about all these mystical and psychic connections people have made with the pineal gland for centuries.
Like, whoa, okay, you got to rethink everything I thought I knew about the brain. So how do scientists even begin to study something like this?
Well, one pioneer is Dr. Rick Strassman. Back in the 90s, he did this groundbreaking research, meticulous recording of volunteers he injected with DMT, all in a controlled setting.
His book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, was a game changer.
Absolutely. And his findings are both fascinating and controversial. It's what makes this whole topic so compelling. His work really kicked off the modern exploration of DMT. So what did these volunteers actually experience?
And it's all over the map, right? Kaleidoscopic patterns, encountering intelligent beings, feeling this transcendence, like merging with the universe.
Mind-blowing, right. But here's what I find fascinating. There are these striking similarities in the experiences, regardless of the person's background.
That's what gets me. It's like there's a common thread running through all these DMT trips, like they're tapping into the same source.
Exactly. One of the most common themes is this feeling of leaving their body, out-of-body experience. Some even describe it as a death-like experience, complete with a tunnel of light.
Like those near-death experiences you hear about. People who've clinically died and come back with these wild stories.
It's uncanny. And then there's this recurring thing about encountering otherness, beings, realms, nearly impossible to describe, but they feel more real than reality itself.
Like they stumbled into another dimension.
Precisely. Sometimes the volunteers even reported receiving information, knowledge from these beings.
It's wild what is going on here.
All right, what are they tapping into?
So we've got the science, but what if we take a trip back in time? There's this interesting link to prehistoric cave art, specifically these figures called the wounded men found in Europe.
Oh, yeah. This is where anthropology gets super interesting.
Oh, you heard of them?
These figures, they're pierced with multiple spears. Some think they might represent shamans going through a symbolic death and rebirth.
Are you suggesting that these ancient artists were depicting DMT experiences? Like their cave art was a trip report?
Some anthropologists think so. They believe altered states of consciousness, maybe induced by naturally occurring DMT, were a huge part of early spiritual practices. It's like, what if those cave paintings are visual records of their journeys into other realms?
It's like, I want to hop in a time machine and ask them about it.
I know, right?
Speaking of mind-blowing connections, can't ignore the parallels between DMT trips and UFO abduction stories. It's kind of freaky how similar they are.
It is.
Both involve this feeling of being taken against your will, entering these strange, often technological environments, encountering beings who communicate without speaking. They conduct these examinations. Time gets distorted. It's speeding up, slowing down, or even missing chunks of time. Spooky, right?
It really is. And there's even some research suggesting a link between people who report UFO abductions and those with specific genetic markers related to DMT production.
Wait, so some people might be genetically predisposed to these experiences?
That's what some researchers think. It's controversial, but it does make you wonder, are some of us literally wired for contact?
That's a heavy thought. Goes beyond just psychology or cultural influence. We're talking about something biological, written into our DNA.
Exactly. Suggests the potential for these experiences might be way more widespread than we think.
Okay, so we've got ancient cave art, UFOs, and genetics. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to dive deeper into the neuroscience of DMT. What's it actually doing to the brain?
Let's do it.
Remember how we were talking about the pineal gland, that potential DMT factory? Well, Strassman noticed something interesting in his research.
Okay.
This gland, it's perfectly positioned in the brain to both produce and release DMT, buried deep, shielded from the blood-brain barrier, and sensitive to light.
So we've got this gland linked to mystical experiences,
Yeah.
the third eye, and it might actually be pumping out DMT.
Wild.
Yeah.
And when you bring in evolution, it gets even weirder. Strassman suggests DMT might be released in huge amounts during super pivotal moments, like,
Near-death experiences.
yeah, even death itself.
Like those moments where our consciousness is on the edge, maybe transitioning between states of being.
Exactly. Radical idea, but it could explain why DMT trips are so often described as profoundly spiritual, otherworldly. Like, maybe our brains are wired for this?
It's heavy stuff. So we've talked visuals, those otherworldly beings, but what about the emotional roller coaster? I mean, people describe feeling huge waves of joy, love, fear, even terror.
And they linger. Those emotions can be tough to process afterwards, like you've been through an emotional pressure cooker.
But even the scary negative experiences, they're often described as transformative, leading to personal growth, spiritual insights.
It's like that classic shamanic journey, right, to the spirit world. It's a trial by fire full of challenges, danger even, but it's through those challenges that you gain wisdom, power.
Like a hero's journey. Face your demons and come out stronger on the other side.
Exactly. And that's in a lot of DMT experiences too. This sense of confronting the unknown, the darkness, and then integrating it all into a bigger understanding of yourself, the universe.
Okay, so we focused on individual experiences, but zoom out for a sec. What are the implications for society if DMT really lets us tap into other realities?
Things get interesting, don't they? How would that change everything we think we know about the universe, about our place in it?
Talk about a paradigm shift. Like, imagine realizing the Earth isn't flat.
Right. It raises profound questions about consciousness, other intelligences, even life after death.
Our whole materialist view of the world out the window.
We'd have to deal with the possibility of a way more interconnected, complex reality than we ever imagined.
Some might say it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Just us wanting to believe in something more.
Maybe.
But these experiences are happening, right? Believers, skeptics, atheists, religious folks, people from all walks of life, they're reporting these incredibly similar encounters, insights.
Exactly. Can't just dismiss it all as hallucinations or delusions. Something deeper is going on, demands further exploration.
It's like we're on the verge of a new understanding of consciousness,
A new paradigm.
one that blends the material and immaterial.
Now let's get back to this otherness thing people experience on DMT.
Yeah, it's not like they're meeting their neighbor in these other realms.
Right, something totally different. Could these beings exist in a dimension we can only perceive in an altered state?
Like, our reality is one slice of a giant cosmic pie, and DMT is the fork that lets us taste the other slices.
Love the analogy. And maybe DMT is letting us glimpse these other realities that exist just beyond our normal perception.
Can't forget about that junk DNA we mentioned.
Oh,
All that
yeah,
mysterious stuff that makes up most of our genetic code. Some think it might actually hold important information.
Like a language we can only understand in altered states.
What if it's not junk at all, but a library of information? The blueprint for consciousness itself.
And maybe DMT is the key that unlocks it.
It's like we're carrying the instructions for a spaceship but can't read them.
And DMT might be the Rosetta Stone, helping us decipher the language of our own DNA.
Love that analogy. It's
Yeah.
mind-blowing to think about all this potential locked away inside us.
Makes you wonder what we might be capable of if we could crack the code.
Okay, so tons of theories, possibilities, but real talk for a sec. You mentioned Strassman had to stop his research because of how intense, how challenging the experiences were getting for some volunteers.
That's right. Really highlights how important it is to approach these experiences with caution, respect. DMT isn't a party drug, it's a powerful tool.
Right.
It can offer profound insights, but it can also be disorienting, even traumatic if it's not handled carefully.
Like venturing into the wilderness unprepared.
Exactly. Need a map, experience guides, be prepared for the unexpected. That's what responsible psychedelic research is all about.
Understanding the risks, minimizing harm, maximizing potential benefits.
A delicate balance. Strassman said he was completely unprepared for how often, how intense the contact experiences were. It challenged his own worldview.
That's powerful.
It is. These experiences can shake us to our core, make us rethink everything we thought we knew, exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Like stepping off a cliff, not knowing what's below, but sometimes you have to take that leap of faith to discover something truly amazing.
Well said. And that's what keeps us coming back to this research, this exploration of consciousness and reality, a journey into the unknown, one that keeps fascinating, challenging us.
So where do we go from here? How do we explore these uncharted territories responsibly, ethically? It's a tough question.
It is, but that's science, right? Especially when you're dealing with something as complex and mysterious as consciousness.
You know, one thing that struck me about Strassman's work was that he didn't start out trying to study contact experiences. He was interested in the pineal gland, its role in consciousness. But the experiences of his volunteers took him down a whole other path.
That's the beauty of science, right? Those unexpected discoveries, they shake things up, make us question everything.
Like finding a secret passage in a library, leading to a whole new section of books you never knew existed.
Exactly. And that's what's happening with DMT research. It's opening up new ways of thinking about consciousness, reality, what it means to be human.
We've talked about the potential benefits, but we got to address the risks too, right? You mentioned some of the challenging experiences those volunteers had.
Absolutely. These experiences, they can be super intense, overwhelming even. Strassman talks about cases where people had truly difficult, even terrifying experiences.
Some felt like they were dying. Others like they were losing their minds.
Serious stuff.
Not something to take lightly.
And that's why set and setting are so crucial.
Right. Mindset, environment.
Yeah. They can make or break the experience.
So it's not just about taking the drug. It's about creating a safe, supportive space, having experienced guides, being prepared for the unexpected.
You got it. And that's something that gets missed a lot. You know how psychedelics are portrayed in the media.
Yeah, they're powerful tools.
Treat them with respect, caution.
Another challenge with DMT research is measuring the effects objectively. How do you quantify something so personal, so subjective?
Tough one, right. Traditional scientific methods, they don't always capture those subtle nuances of altered states. But researchers are coming up with new tools, new techniques, trying to assess the impact, the psychological, emotional, even spiritual effects.
It's like trying to measure the ocean's depth with a ruler.
Need new instruments, new ways of thinking to really grasp the depths of consciousness that DMT seems to reveal.
And speaking of those depths, one of the most common themes is the encounter with otherworldly beings.
Yeah.
Intelligent, often technologically advanced.
And they communicate in ways that just don't fit with our normal understanding. Telepathy, visual symbols, emotions even.
Like they're trying to bridge the gap between our realities, to share a message, a teaching.
And this is where anthropology comes in. It's fascinating. Throughout history, across cultures, you see descriptions of encounters with spirit beings, often in shamanic rituals, mystical experiences.
So maybe what we're seeing with modern DMT research, it's tapping into something ancient, universal.
A core part of the human experience.
Some believe these otherworldly beings are extraterrestrials, visitors from other planets. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a possibility, for sure. But our imaginations are powerful, you know?
Yeah.
What we perceive as aliens could be something totally different. Interdimensional beings, spirit guides, archetypes from our collective unconscious even.
Like looking at clouds. We see different shapes, images based on our own perceptions, interpretations.
Exactly. It's good to be open to possibilities, but also be cautious about projecting our own beliefs onto these experiences.
One thing Strassman's research showed is that DMT seems to induce a state of consciousness that's just fundamentally different from our everyday reality.
Yeah.
Boundaries between self and other, they dissolve. Time and space become fluid. The impossible seems possible.
It's like Alice stepping through the looking glass.
A world where the rules no longer apply.
And that's what makes this research so groundbreaking. It challenges our deepest assumptions about what it means to be conscious, to be human.
Some say DMT is a gateway to spiritual enlightenment, a way to access higher realms of consciousness.
Could be. But it's not a shortcut, you know?
Right.
These experiences, they're a catalyst, a tool for exploration, self-discovery.
Would have half.
It doesn't guarantee you'll find the treasure, but it points you in the right direction.
So much covered today, the science, the stories, the historical connections. But the biggest question remains, right? Is DMT a window to other realities or just a really powerful hallucinogen?
The million-dollar question, hasn't it? Fascinated and perplexed people for ages. In the end, each of us has to answer that for ourselves.
It's true.
But one thing's for sure, the DMT experience makes us question everything. Our assumptions about consciousness, reality, the very nature of existence.
It's a journey into the unknown.
One that will stay with you.
It really will.
It might even change how you see the world, your place in it. Who knows, maybe it'll lead you to your own profound discoveries.